Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Nothing Personal. It's Alan and Joe here again. And today we are really excited. We have the guy that everyone knows. He is Jim Peterson of Lumagen, and nothing else even needs to be said. We are here to discuss with him today the new ArtisaN coming, which it's creating a lot of buzz out there. We're getting a lot of messages, a lot of people, a lot of interest going. So dare I say, hey, Mr. Peterson, why don't you talk to us and give us some of the key features right off the bat about this ArtisaN?
Thank you for having me on the show. I'd be happy to talk about the ArtisaN. I got a couple other interesting pieces of data for you. For example, today we're going live with a new website, an actually updated website. Our website is actually circa 2000. And so it is basically a complete professionally done refresh. And Mara, who did it, did an amazing job, we think. So we're really excited about that. And a lot of the information we're going to talk about on the ArtisaN will be on the website. The brochure for the ArtisaN is on the website, and we talk about a promo, special price pre-order with a deposit on the website. So we'll talk about that in a few, but we can start with the technical details if that's what you'd like. Our goal is to ship early alpha units in September. With that aim, we're actually going to go for the CD Best of Show. That is a good target for us. We're working toward that. We're getting the boards, spinning a board, and we should be able to do that. But until you get it done, we never know. So we are working very hard for that. That would be what we're going to call the ArtisaN 8K Ready. Still not loving that name, but it's basically what it is. So the hardware that we will ship will be production 8K hardware, identical to the full ArtisaN 8K product we talked about. But we're going to do the 8K ready because it will become 8K once you add a software key once we get to that point. But doing 8K, the way that they've done the fixed straight length and the way we have to use our FPGA softcore is just a totally different new way to do things than the 4K. So we're working on that. We have the switchboard working. We have the FPGA getting close, and that the FPGA board. And so that will be the sum of the two parts that we put inside a new 2U case for the ArtisaN. The 2U case allows us to use an 80 millimeter Nakura, I forget. Anyway, so the very quiet fan. We can put it vertically, and that will allow us to do a lot of impinged air and keep it pretty quiet. The FPGA that we're using is over four times bigger for the lookup tables, but more importantly, I think it's about 6 times as many multiply accumulators. Now, that's a technical term, sorry, but that basically gives us about 6 times the horsepower in the pipeline that we do our video processing. So we're going to do that. I made a final decision. We're going to add the 4K Dolby. I've been talking with Dolby for doing that, and I think we may actually be the first that will do 4K Dolby, because for us, we've already got the infrastructure. We just have to synthesize it and put it in. So it should go in pretty simply. So the 4K Dolby was a coin toss for a while, but I've got enough interest that we're going to go ahead and do it. But there's enough people that like it, and I actually like the Dolby. If you turn it down, and then you turn our edge enhancement on, the combination, it gives you a really good pop without making the image look artificial and overprocessed. And that would be a big negative to me. So we want to keep the image, the sharpening should recreate anything lost in the compression, not create the image looking artificial. I just really dislike that.
So I take it you will have a couple on display at CEDIA this year then, correct?
We will have a unit on display at CEDIA. It's a completely new design, but it's not a completely new architecture. So it's FPGA based. All the processing's done, just like the Radiance Pro is done in an FPGA. So basically, as the base load, we'll start with what we have in our 4 and 5000 series and work from there. So right now we have a 12-bit 422 video processing pipeline. The next step will be to make that 12-bit 444. I've always argued that for consumer video, you don't need to start with 444. You just need to end with 444. But we're seeing gaming's rendered in RGB, so you actually have full resolution chroma. Additionally, with the introduction of the Kaleidoscape Strato V, which is a great player, and I had the opportunity to consult with Kaleidoscape on that. They had a really great engineer. I want to make that clear. He really did a great job. And then I just came in and helped them kind of tune it up a little bit at the end for the HDMI. And so that is a really great source that can do Dolby Vision, but it's in, I got to get this right, the ICTCP, I think, the color space. So it's a perceptual color space that I have trouble remembering the letters of because I don't say it enough, but it is giving you a better image with better chroma resolution for the same 10 bits that HDR10 does. So because of that, and it's really interesting, John Thompson, who is a producer at a major studio, he did an analysis, and he has all the tools. He has I call them golden eyes. He sees things that other people can't see that I know are there because I know the math. But he uses the Lumagen's Radiance Pro for his vetting of his consumer releases. And so definitely for his studio, you can say, see what the director intended, basically is a accurate model for Lumagen. So I kind of got sidetracked, but it's a 12-bit 444 pipeline because his view is we get about 12 bits of precision out of the 10-bit and the extra chroma resolution. I can say now it can make some sense to do a better job of 444 for that particular source. Other consumer sources are still going to be 422. That's just the way it is. You don't need a 444 pipeline for that. But for gaming and for that, the ArtisaN will have the same Genlock, different, should be a better Genlock than in the Radiance Pro. It's certainly different. So the chip we're using, we have two options. We're not sure how that's going to go, but we actually have what's called a voltage-controlled crystal. So that will allow us some flexibility to keep it really accurate, very low jitter. We also have a very good phase lock loop chip, and I'll talk about phase lock loops when I talk about audio a little bit, but that actually allows us to do the Genlock. But with the Genlock and mode, we'll still be able to do all processing in 3 milliseconds. So if you want to do gaming, Lumagen's the only choice in a video processor. You can do a video switch, but you can't do video processing except with the Lumagen, at least to my knowledge. And 3 milliseconds is fast enough that even very avid gamers say that it's fast enough that I can do that gaming in my theater. You put your projector in low latency mode like the JVC has. You put the Lumagen in Genlock in game mode, and you can actually play Twitch games using the Lumagen. And a lot of people love the fact that they can take a 16:9 game, stretch it out to 240 or 22, whatever their aspect ratio is for their screen. You get all the video processing, you get HDR tone mapping. And so all of that stuff plays in that Lumagen, especially with the ArtisaN, will be the de facto standard for home gaming for video processors because it will actually take a step up from where we're at for gaming. 4K 120 support. If you get to people ask me 4K 120, but that's integral for 8K. So when you say 8K, as far as the standard goes, you're talking the FRL, HDMI 2.1 for 4K 120. And in fact, 4K 120, I think, is more of a deal than 8K because gamers want 4K 120, and you can actually get sources that way. So it's very similar in architecture. We do have some features that we're talking about adding. For example, the Dolby 4K. That is something that we can do in the new ArtisaN because we have a lot more gates to do it. We're looking at curvilinear masking. We don't think the curvilinear scaling is really the right way to go for an anamorphic lens, but we are looking at curvilinear masking. That's just on our list. We have a lot of work to add stuff. And I will say that people ask me, well, what does that mean for the 4000 and the 5000 series? So there are things that we may do for the 4000, 5000 because they're still going to be very parallel paths. The C code is based on the same C code. The FPGA design starts out based on the same FPGA design. So there will be stuff that we do for the ArtisaN that will get retrofitted into the 4000, 5000. Plus, there's some things that we have on our list to go back and work on, minor things, bug fixes, couple like minor things on the 4000, 5000 series, the current Radiance Pro. So they're not going to be left behind as far as there will be continued updates. But the major feature like a 444 pipeline, it's not going to fit in a Radiance Pro. If you want that, you're going to have to upgrade to the ArtisaN. So that's kind of the general thing. There's other things we're considering, but I don't want to talk too much about those kind of details yet. We are looking to, like I said, do the 8K ready. It's 4K 60 in September for the first ship. First ship is first ship, not massive shipping. And then we'll start to ship as we can build after that, and then in fourth quarter. And our goal is to have 8K upgrades in the fourth quarter, by the end of the fourth quarter. We're planning 2 different 8K upgrades. One is just pass-through, because talked to several dealers who say, oh, my guys just want to pass through their 4K 120. Can you do that? Yeah, we can do that, and that's going to be sooner than processing 8K. So we're planning, the 8K ready in the USA, $10,995. The special deal now, if you pre-order with a 50% deposit, you get $1,000 off that. Then if you want to add 8K pass-through, what we plan on at this time is $500 for that. It's a key. It would be a software key. You just, add it. And then if you want 8K processing, when we have it, it will be a $2,000 add. And so the people who don't need 8K don't have to pay the extra, but the hardware cost is still the same. So it's not it's not going to be as inexpensive as a 4240 would be, but we're continuing to build the 4240. So we will see what we're planning on doing is now we're at end of production on the 4400 series, because the people buying those have really transitioned to the 5000 series. So those sales have gone down. So we're going to stop selling those. The 4244 and the 4246 were based on the same design. We're going to be end of manufacturing life on those. So basically, we're going to go into a mode of we'll repair them for you. If you've got one and you want it repaired, we'll repair it. We'll continue to build the 4240, the 4242, and the 4140. The 5000 series we'll keep building. We believe that the de-jitter aspects of the 5000 will also be available in the ArtisaN. It's basically the same, in the 5000, we had over 30 linear power supplies. I put a lot of linear power supplies so I could isolate all of the digital. And that's how come it's got such a low jitter. We have measured jitter of around 10 picoseconds. When we do a release, we actually check that. John Thompson, who doesn't have any financial interest in Lumagen, really likes the product, and he does checking for us on his equipment to tell us what the jitter is on each release. So we try to keep it around 10 picoseconds. That gives you better audio when you pass through the Lumagen. We expect, but we're not to the place where we're able to really know everything because we haven't got the final design done. We expect the ArtisaN to have around the same amount of jitter. So it should have about the same characteristics of improving audio when you use a Lumagen as the switcher.
Jim, you talked about it better than 422 from Dolby Vision. Is that all Dolby Vision or just exclusive to Kaleidoscape?
Right now, I believe it's exclusive to Kaleidoscape.
Nice, interesting.
It's best of my knowledge, and I might be missing some data, but I believe that so basically, if you have a disc, the base layer of the disc has to be 420 because that is the standard that they've agreed to. So if you have a Dolby Vision disc, it is an overlay on top of the 420. And in fact, the overlay is not 4K. It's actually 1080p from the best of my understanding. And so what they can do in the Kaleidoscape is they don't need the overlay. They just encode it in the raw perceptual space, and they're able to use all of those bits. And their compression can be less as well. They can choose how much to compress. They control all that. It's a hard drive. So I'm a big fan of the Kaleidoscape, and so I'm talking to people about it, and this has actually changed my mind because I was sticking with HDR10 for my Strato V. Now I'm switching to going to use the Dolby Vision versions with that, because there are a couple of bugs in the LLDV implementations. The various players have some bugs. There's apparently a issue in the software development kit from Dolby about lifting the black, and we have a workaround for that. That for most good players, you get rid of the problem by reducing the black level, and we have that setting in our HDR setting, a separate level for Dolby Vision for that. But some players, it just makes it hard to really do because they're tone mapping, even though we're telling them don't tone map. We have a 10,000 nit display, even though we don't, but that gives us the ability to do all the tone mapping in the Lumagen, and they still tone map. So there's some issues with Dolby Vision LLDV from certain sources and streamers, but from the best of my knowledge, they are not there with the Kaleidoscape Strato V or the new Strato E, other than the black level, which is in the software development kit, but we can work around that one.
If we're getting better than 422 from Dolby Vision, exclusive from Kaleidoscape, any chance they might be able to deliver something better from HDR10?
My understanding
Make my day, Jim.
Yeah. So my understanding is there's no reason HDR10 couldn't be coded in a way that gives them more precision than 10 bits. There's no reason, in my opinion and my belief, why you couldn't code. And in fact, it's a question I've been trying to ask Kaleidoscape is, are you coding everything the same and then just outputting it as Dolby Vision or outputting it as HDR10? There's no reason they couldn't. They have complete control of the hardware.
I would be willing to pay a premium, for certain titles in a superior format.
I would too. I talked to Taylor, their CEO, several times about better 4K. Yeah. And I have talked to Kaleidoscape in general about people will pay a premium for the better quality releases. At this point, I think they're just choosing. They're going to choose certain, titles may just get more bits and better quality, but they can choose that. I think they should and maybe will encode the same way, whether it's going to be output as Dolby Vision or whether it's going to be output as HDR10. There's absolutely no reason they couldn't do that.
If feeding your new Lumagen Dolby Vision from Kaleidoscape, do you leave your tone mapping on or turn it off and put it in the bypass mode?
Okay, you want to use the Lumagen's tone mapping, absolutely.
Okay. So we wouldn't lose anything in the color, the extra colors? Okay.
No. So basically, from what I understand is if we tell the Strato V we have 10,000 nits, they should disable their tone mapping. I'm not 100% sure on that one yet, but I'm getting positive responses that, yeah, that is true. And so that allows us to do all the tone mapping, and we will do a better job. John Thompson, the producer, does basically blind comparisons with Lumagen, Dolby Vision. Dolby Vision is a close second, but the Lumagen wins because of our tone mapping he says, better than Dolby Vision. We're doing it in real time. We're doing it on a per scene basis. And I think some of that is we've spent a lot of time on key difficult scenes to make sure that those look good. And then that applies to other difficult scenes as they come up. So we can look, I was at the CEDIA Tech Summit for dealers this week, and we had a really nice new projector from Digital Projection we were showing with. Very nice thing. It's going to do full Rec 2020 with lens. It's going to be running about $30,000. It's 10,000 lumens peak, and roughly 7,500 calibrated that you can get out of it. The thing about that is with the Lumagen, we were able to send them HDR directly and then have the Lumagen process it. And I have a scene that we're going to actually put up on our brand new account on X, Lumagen Inc., INC, all one word. And then on Instagram, Lumagen_INC. We're actually going to post the image of the going direct to a projector that has really good HDR and then going through the Lumagen on a tough scene. The scene happens to be one from Mad Max Fury Road where the truck's exploding in the sky. And it's just one of those that if you don't have really good dynamic tone mapping, it's just not going to look as good as if you go and let the Lumagen do the tone mapping.
I know where you stand in the past on frame interpolation or motion flow or motion AI, whatever the heck you want to call it. Is this going to be a no-go no matter what? Is it a possibility, something maybe on the roadmap for the future?
So, yeah, no, you can ask, and I'll give the same answer I gave before. So, John's studio, to show a movie on a television, does do motion interpolation. To do that, they have a room full of GPU-based, very expensive computers and do human intervention on every scene and take 30 seconds per frame. And he says it does a pretty decent job of that. So if you had a room full of GPU computers and you wanted to do that, maybe it's going to be a half a room full in a few years. But to do motion interpolation, you really need to do object-based motion interpolation. That's not what's being done by any of the people doing it today on the fly. They do boxes. And when you do boxes, what happens is I saw a flyover from one of the motion interpolations that are out there of a forest. And what you see is the trees break up into boxes that are less than old, QSIF resolution of 240. And their boxes are moving like this. And so what happens is you can't deal with things that are getting bigger. You can't deal with things getting smaller. You can't deal with things that are in one frame and then disappear or partially occluded and that. So there are so many issues. I am very adamant to not create artifacts. Motion interpolation will create artifacts, and maybe someday they'll have really good AI to figure that out as good as a human, but that's what the human's doing when they're doing this for converting a 24 hertz movie to show on television, is they have to look for the cases that it can't do and do something that masks the issues with that. Because if you have something in frame, you don't have any kind of a motion vector. If you have something in motion, it's blurry. The only real way you could do good motion interpolation would be to de-blur it, which is really not practical. Then you have to figure out the motion, and then you have to re-blur it based on the fact that you might be showing it in half the time, twice as many frames or 3 times as many frames. So from a mathematical perspective, I actually worked on motion interpolation back in 2000. And at first I was really enamored. This is great. And then I started going through and thinking of all the problems with it. And then I just decided that's a no-go. And that's, for me, some people like it. Some people like it for LED walls because of the way that they're doing it. But that's, I think, a design flaw in the LED walls that they can work around. If the LED wall manufacturers get their act together on that. And so we have people using Lumagen with LED walls, and they say it works great. It really does a great job. We don't believe in motion interpolation. I don't, personally, and we're not planning on doing it. It would be a lot of gates, and we would actually have to have more logic to try to do it, a reasonable job, which would be not even good enough, not even close enough. You can't really do it in a single computer well. And even 5 years from now, even though all of this exponential growth in GPU performance, even with that, I don't think you're going to be able to do an adequate job for motion interpolation. That if artifacts are a thing for you, and they are for me.
Fair enough. Good answer. The other question I'm going to throw out there, GUI. Will the ArtisaN have a nice update? Will it be something different than what you're currently using?
Yes, I have heard that request a few times, 1 or 2. We are planning on doing some improvements. For one of the things I want to do is I want to have a simplified version of the menu. There's a lot of things. I think the biggest problem we have is people are overwhelmed by how many things you can do of which only a few percentage of dealers doing custom installs really need. So we're going to try to do a simpler menu. We're going to make it look prettier, better font, stuff like that. And that is a goal for the ArtisaN. That is one of the primary goals. Even though I tell people you don't watch the menu, your calibrator comes in, sets it up. And the calibrators tell me once they get used to it, they love the menu because they can do anything you want. It's there. And once you set it up, we have memory buttons. You press a button and it does exactly what you want it to do. You don't have to navigate a menu to try to get, I want to change this thing or I want to change that thing. You can have some settings for that. And it's per memory, per input settings so that you can do all sorts of customization. And then the user can select it with one button.
Are all the features of the current model transitioning over to the new model? Are we going to lose anything?
No, basically, I'm say it differently. Yes, everything's going to be in the new model. We're not losing anything. That's the starting point for the ArtisaN.
All right. You're keeping the separate horizontal and vertical sharpness control.
Correct. Yeah,
that's one of my favorites.
Yeah. Well, you asked us for it, so
I know. I don't want to see it go. I don't want to lose it.
It will be there. We have had discussions. I guess there's one thing about the vertical keystone. We've had mixed reviews of do we need to keep it or not. Right now, it's going to stay in, but it's not something I love. You really should be doing that in the projector, but it is getting used by people who have a projector they can't mount close enough to the right place. That vertical keystone is getting used in some installations. So I'd love to see that go. 4K Dolby adds a lot of gates, but we're thinking that's going to be a good add. So that is a step up from what we currently have. 444 pipeline, and then 12 bits. Now 12 bits, I'm not saying we will do more than 12 bits, but I certainly want to look at doing more than 12 bits because that would give us even finer grade precision. If we've got something that's equivalent to 12 bits coming out of a Strato B, I'd like to have more in the pipeline, but that's, we're not saying we're doing that, but that is certainly something that's on our list to evaluate.
Now, when you say 12-bit, is that going to be for any one color space or?
Just 422 on the current models. The ArtisaN, I'll have to double check the chips, but I'm sure with the new chip, the HDMI 2.1 chips, we should be able to do 12-bit 444 or 12-bit for RGB on the output and probably higher. So the 8K has 2.1 chips in it. The 8K Ready has 2.1 chips in it. Same chips we're going to use in the full 8K. They are HDMI 2.1, capable of full 8K 60. People have asked me 40 gig or 48. And because of some hardware limitations on the chips that we're using, it will be 40 gig. So 8K would be 10 bits limited. 8K is going to always be 420, but that's just in the standard that way. The limitation of 8K is it doesn't have the so in 4K we have 3840 as the standard, and 4096 there's a lot of chips out there. But in the sending 8K, there is no such thing. There's basically 3840 times 2 or 4096 times 2 does not exist. So you can't do that. So my opinion is because of compression issues, and I've talked to a lot of people, and the people that understand the math agree with me that you can probably have a better looking image with 4K for a given bit rate and a given compression scheme than you would if you upscaled it and sent it out as 8K, because bits are always the limit. And for the given bit rate, 4K is going to give you the ability to have more bits dedicated toward things like chroma. Chroma in the current standards, the first thing they do is they just really throw out all the detail in chroma. The truncation matrix in DCTs, the luminance, it's basically divided by, I think it's 4. It's been a while, and then it's by 16, I think, for the DC term in the DCTs. That's been a while since I've looked at these, but you can do. After that, they start throwing away additional bits, and so for 4K, you're not doing as much throwing away the additional bits. And the new compression schemes are going to improve. the ICT CP, is that right? That is a better, it's a perceptually better, it's using a perceptual space, so is a better use of the bits, and that will give you more quality. But for 4K, then you can use it and you have all those bits available for 1/4 the number of pixels. So my view is better 4K for content. I have no problem with 8K projectors. I have no problem with 8K televisions. Oversampling in audio works. Oversampling in video should help, and we have seen some improvement. We have the JVC RS4100, where we were able to show a particularly good static scene going from a Lumagen using our edge enhancements to the projector, and then having the projector upscale. We saw on a static scenes ever so slight improvement with the 8K upscale. And so upscaling can do some good, but the content, you're better off sending it as 4K, in my opinion. And not everyone agrees with me, but I believe that 4K content is the way to go. You don't need new infrastructures. Everything should work well with 4K content. And then we upscale it to 8K if people want us to upscale it, or in the projector, probably going to be pretty good too, because you're talking such a subtle thing that the scaling quality doesn't need to be as good going from 4K to 8K as it might be from 480 to 4K. You need really good scaling for that. 4K to 8K, pretty much all the projectors are going to do a good job, and we can interface with them at 4K. So I'm really an advocate of let's just do better 4K.
4K to 8K, are you just doubling or are you scaling?
Yeah, we'll scale. Yeah, when we get there, we will do real scaling. Basically, we're planning on using the same, what we call our no-ring algorithm, when we go 4K to 8K. We're not going to just pixel replicate or double or something like that.
This sounds like the box to go with. One thing that bothers me, I don't like the compression in our 4K discs. I don't like the noise reduction that's still being used. Case in point, I can watch a movie on a DCP and they'll show a close-up of a face. A gentleman will have a beard and it looks like a photograph. The beard looks like a beard. But if you look at somebody's beard on 4K and HDR disc, beard looks like mush. It's so compressed.
Yeah, I think the compression really does affect the quality. And again, I'm a fan of Kaleidoscape because they can choose how much compression they're going to have. And when they compress it in this new perceptual space, they can do an even better job with the 4K to make it look really, really good. And I think that is something that you'll see improvements as they get better at doing that. It's going to show you. It makes to me, the Kaleidoscape Strato V, Strato E a much better use of funds, because they're not an inexpensive way to get into the market. And then you're ending up paying basically retail for movies, which is fine by me. And I love my Strato. I have a 40 Tera server for the Strato V. The Strato V, I actually talk to people, is great. If you've got a gigabit Ethernet internet, then you can live with just the Strato V. It has 10 movies you can store. And what I tell people is, friends come over, want to watch a movie. If it's not on there, I'll download it. It'll be done before dinner's over. And we can watch the movie, 15 minutes or less potentially, for the movies. So it's a great product. And I don't have any financial interest in Kaleidoscape. I do want to say that. It's just, I really like their product.
No, I'm with you. I love the Strato V. Like I've said before, I put a movie on it. We take it outside for outdoor movie of a 35-foot screen we blow up, and it's beautiful. I don't have to worry about relying on streaming. It just plays the movie. There's no pause, no issues, no circle time downtime. Everyone loves it. It's a great product just for that alone. Or if I want to take it and show someone how great the Kaleidoscape system is, I can put it in my vehicle, drive around with it, have 10 movies with demos on it, and show people. Can't beat that.
Absolutely. I just took it to the CEDIA regional tech event, and that's what we did. We had 6 movies playing a script, and it was fine. It was standalone, and at the end, it's very small. You can just pack it up and take it home.
Okay, so here's a really good nerd question. So for all those guys who don't use their universal remotes and have different ideas, is this remote going to be the same that you have before? Is it going to be a different kind of remote with the ArtisaN?
Here's the difference, and I'll show it to you here.
Nice.
It's backlit. So just so people know, the current product will still be shipping with the current non-backlit version. This remote is the same buttons except for its backlit, and so it's easier to use it in a darkened theater. So I've been fortunate enough that I had one of a couple samples, and I sent one to Chris Deering, and he's had it for a while. And it's very nice to have the backlit remote.
Excellent. That's a good job. I love it.
I'm excited. I mean, for me, I'm a rivet counter. I want the best of the best. This sounds like the box to have. I can't wait for it to get here.
I'll review one. There you go.
Absolutely. We'll get you one to review if nothing else. And so just to talk a little bit about the promo order, pre-order that we have. So it's going to be $10,995 for the ArtisaN 8K ready. And if you pre-order, you get $1,000 off and you put a 50% down. It's essentially the same package, but it has, like I said, over 4 times the logic, about 6 times the multiplier accumulates, and roughly almost 8 times as much memory inside. So it looks very similar, but because it's got so much more logic, it's going to run hotter, and we have to have better cooling. We're going to try to keep it as quiet as possible. We're not going through any liquid cooling kind of things that just it would be a little bit more than we want to bite off on, but it should be pretty quiet. We're using the Nakura fan, and it's a really quiet for an 80 millimeter fan. But you'll look at it and it's like, oh, that looks just like the Radiance Pro. But it's not. It's different. The HDMI chips are different. The FPGA is different. The LVDS switch we use for switching things is different. They're all upgraded to 8K capabilities.
And I'm sure we'll probably say ArtisaN somewhere on the front of it, correct?
It does. Oh, I should. I have a front panel behind me. I could show you, but we have it on the website.
Yeah, let's see it.
Alan, you didn't even know I was going to ask about that, did you?
I had no idea.
You're
doing good, Joe.
Thanks.
Just don't ask for an increase in pay.
All right. So here's the ArtisaN front panel. Yay!
Hey, that's awesome. Look at that.
So this is actually the same front panel that we used on the original Radiance Pro. This is going to be effectively looked like the original Radiance Pro, except it says ArtisaN. I have the design basically done from the hardware architecture and the design and the board layout. And now it's I put all the weight on Patrick's shoulders to get the software and the FPGA done. So there are some new things. The FPGA softcore has for the HDMI, and the newer DDR4 DRAM, so we can get the bandwidth for 8K. But Patrick has that kind of stuff. He has it well in hand. He's really been a great add to our company for the last 20 years. He's worked with us, and he solves problems that I never thought he could solve. So that's really great. We have bugs, and the bugs are in other products. He figures a way out to work around them. So the other thing I wanted to mention, give a quick reference to the Sync 1.2. One of the things that I'm actually on the CD RP23 standards committee, and one of the things we're talking about is Genlock. I have very strong feelings about lip sync, and Genlock is very important for a video processor to have, because otherwise you get a variance of at least 1 frame. And so if you want to actually have the very best lip sync, very consistent, you need a video processor with lip sync, and this is one way to check it. And you'll see the variance walk over time and see that, because the projectors often will have a frame of variance, and then a video processor with an additional frame of variance is going to cause visible lip sync issues, especially with music. If you've got a drumstick B, harp strings, I actually use harp strings. If you don't have a Sync 1.2, you can use harp strings to set your lip sync, because you can actually see the fingers. Guitar strums you could, but the problem is they're strumming and it's really hard. But the picks of the harps, if you can find a close-up of them picking the strings, that is a really great thing. With lips, if you want to do it with a person, P's and B's, but they're actually hard to get it right. So getting it right is different than seeing it's right later. So you got to get it right with something that's easy to check. There's a test pattern on the Spears and Munsell 4K disc that actually you can do a really good job getting it right. If your audio processor doesn't vary the delay based on the format. I think theirs is a 2-channel PCM format. So if an audio processor takes longer for Atmos, you didn't set lip sync right. And you need to have it an audio processor that has fixed lip sync if possible. But you can really dial it in. And it's one of those things that once you see lip sync issues, you can't unsee them. You really need to get them right. And we actually have one person on our website talking about in professional studios, you need to have the gen lock for the video processor to get the lip sync correct. We actually have people using us in sound studios because they say my sources have different lip syncs. I need a programmable lip sync. So we get it fixed with the gen lock, and then we give you a programmable video delay that allows you to adapt it to various sources. And that's something you can do in the Lumagen that you can't do with other products.
Jim, from a business standpoint, for a possible additional income stream for yourself, I've always wondered why you didn't charge a fee for your updates. I know the customers wouldn't want to have to pay for it, but some of your updates that are free, they're major updates.
Okay, well, I'm going to start doing that, and I'm going to tell everyone you told me to.
No, no.
No, I'm joking. I am totally joking. Totally joking. It was started, I think, just because we started doing that, and then we just never found a way to change it to charging for updates. It's very tempting to try to do that, and we may at some point want to do that. We have actually had enough sales to cover. We're a small company. We're trying to be a good service as well as a good product for people, but provide future value, and that provides new sales to us. So people buy the Lumagen knowing that they're going to get free updates. So
going forward for the new product currently, anyways, the updates, there's no changes. It's still going to be free for the time being.
That is the plan. As long as we're selling enough product to cover our engineering and cover our costs, we're not thinking of doing any charges. Like, dynamic tone mapping, we should be charged for this. That, but we kind of fell into it with static tone mapping. And even, as soon as we saw Dolby doing it back in their very first demos, like, okay, we eventually need to do this. And we talked about, can we charge for it? And it just seemed like such a key feature that we thought, no, we're not going to charge for that. We did charge. The only thing we've ever charged for was the 3D key back in the day, back in 2010, 11, 12 timeframe. And it would be a nice source of extra income to have people do a subscription for updates. And we have considered that.
I didn't want to ask that, but Joe, before we got started here, he put it on the list. He asked me to ask it. I'm blaming it on Joe now.
There you go.
Yes. Okay, Joe.
So Jim, how long has Lumagen been in business? You pretty much own the market for decades.
To give you a little history, we had a funeral on September 10th, 2001, and I told my then wife, tomorrow I'm starting the business. That day was September 11th, 2001. And that's really the only reason I remember the day I started Lumagen. I didn't get a lot done that day. I was interested in home theater. It was my hobby. I had a little home theater. I had a Dwin D700 back in the day.
I remember those.
I needed a video processor for it. I didn't want to spend $25,000 on a Ferrugia. And I was crazy enough to say, hey, I can do that. and that's what we did. And so we have, in the early days, we actually had, I think, 7 competitors that were trying for the business. And then what really changed the structure, DVDO took their price point from $3,500 down to $1,299. At the same time, I was saying, no, I got to go more expensive. We took our price point from $2,000 up to $5,000 because it's a limited size market. If you overspend on marketing, you're not going to get a return on investment for that because it's a limited size even today. But the other thing was 3D. We had a field programmable gate array. When 3D video with the glasses came, Patrick took 3 months, added it to our software, and we kept going, and everybody else went out of business because they couldn't do it. They had hardwired chips and couldn't get that into a chip for them soon enough so that they could stay in business. So from about 2012 until a couple, 3 years ago, we were pretty much the game in town. We are going to start shipping the Lumagen hopefully end of September, and then get the 8K working hopefully by around the end of the year.
Can you claim this is made in the USA?
This is manufactured in the USA. There's a legal definition of made that has to be 100% basically of the product. And so we say manufactured in the USA. We do our board assembly here in Beaverton, Oregon, where we're at just outside of Portland, and we do our case manufacturing here in Beaverton, Oregon. We do our final assembly here in Beaverton, Oregon. And so it's all manufactured in Oregon. And so we get to say manufactured in the USA, and we don't have any tariffs for anyone buying it in the USA other than we pay tariffs on parts.
What do you guys use at home? What do you guys use for your equipment?
Well, great. We actually have that on the website because some people were asking. So we have, starting out with a Lumagen. I'm sure that's a surprise. I have an Altitude 16 calibrated by Adam Pels. He's the guy for that. I have Chris Deering, who's actually coming here tonight and spending the night here, but he does calibrations for us with the RS4100 JVC. I have an old RS4500 sitting in the basement. I'm still trying to see if I can find a good home for it near Portland. The speakers are Revel C208 for the center, F206s for the sides, W380s for 6 surrounds and 6 overheads. So we are a 9.2.6 Atmos, and we're all, I put the speakers exactly. I built speaker boxes to actually direct the speakers in the right place. So they're all, it's all done, I think, very well. It's a good sounding room. I have Sue HSU Research 15-inch, I forget the actual model, quarter point waypoints in the front. We thought about putting them in the back, but we're a little bit limited in space. So far we haven't done that in the back. I tell people I have these really expensive bass traps in the front corners. It was a cardboard box filled with Rockwell wool, and I think they cost me like $40 a piece. But we have lots of rock wall and lots of acoustic dampening stuff and a false wall in front of our 2.40 Studio Tech 130 14-foot diagonal screen. So it's a nice size theater. We get about 80 nits at mid laser out of the RS4100. People ask me, well, how much light do you need for a home theater? Well, I'd like to have 100. But the interesting thing that people don't seem to understand is your eye's going to adapt. There's too little light, definitely, and there's too much light where it's harder for your eyes to adapt in a environment like this. But over the range of maybe 80 to 150 nits, after you start the movie, your irises are going to adjust, and it's going to look, perceptually, basically about the same brightness. So I tell people, go for quality first. Reasonable light. I like to say 80 nits is kind of a minimum. I wouldn't want to be less than 80, but even at 60, you can have a really good looking HDR image. And they say, well, what about highlights? And what I talk about is, for me, HDR has 2 primary good things about it. One is black levels and low level noise in blacks. And that they have that every which way. The 2084 gamma curve, you don't really get out of black until you're like 40% of the way up in the 10-bit colors in the range. So by doing that, you can get by and have really good blacks. And your highlights, you're not going to get the highlights you'd get out of a 1000 nit OLED. That's just a given. But I much prefer having a big 14-foot, the movie screen, and it just looks like a movie theater, movie cinema, rather than a television. From a 13-foot widescreen, which is right about off, though I like setting 1x the screen width. Whatever, you have a 16:9, you have a 240, whatever that is, screen width to me is more important than screen height. 1x away to me is optimal. You get a reasonable field of view, but you're not so close you can see the pixels. And it's just good. Everything at that distance, the 4K is just slightly under human perception, which is about a 60th of a degree of arc, or 1 arc second. And that is a good place for a 4K projector. Even if you have an 8K, I still think it's probably the best distance to see. One thing I will say that I didn't want to forget is we scored SR14 at CEDIA this year. That's a sound room. It's in the theater row. And we are going to be showing with several companies. We're still working on the finalization of that. But we're going to have, I think, a really great demo at CEDIA. If you have a chance to come to CEDIA, please come see us at SR14. I'm sorry, nice. SR11. I think I misspoke. SR11.
In closing, and I know you're on the heels of just launching a new product, I have an idea for your next product.
What's that?
All right. The media players have a slot where you can insert a drive, an additional hard drive. Well, in your Lumagen, you could have a slot that would have a built-in kaleidoscope, all in one. It would shorten the video path. And if you go forward with this, you heard it here first, I want some royalties.
Well, I would love to see Lumagen be put into an audio processor. We have talked to audio processors for years. Why don't you put Lumagen in? And it's just the cost and the way the ROA works and stuff. But I think the perfect place for a Lumagen is inside a projector. I don't see why a projector company doesn't put Lumagen inside the projector, because you can do so much better than just having what they have. But they're already fairly expensive, and again, it's the ROI that they have to look at. So I would love to work. I talk to Talo fairly frequently. He's the CEO of Kaleidoscape, and I would love to work with them more closely, that we could actually have a format and a connection in a single box where they can send us the ICTCP directly instead of having to convert it to RGB, because then we could process it in that color space, and not basically what we're doing right now would be 444 in the ArtisaN. So that would be way cool. I'd love to do that. And then we send it to the projector in RGB, but that's basically what they're displaying it as. So then we could actually use RGB to send it to the projector and get the very best possible image you could. Don't think it's going to happen, but no, it's a good thought.
Well, we want to thank Mr. Lumagen, Jim Peterson, for stopping by. And we just want to thank you for watching our content, and please like and subscribe.
Thank you so much for having me. I'd love to see you guys show up at SR11 at CEDIA, September, in Denver. And we think we're going to have a great demo there.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.